Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dustin Duran, and I'm going to be doing a full breakdown of the Total War Warhammer 3 2.2 patch. First off, I will be separating everything by chapters, so check the description for anything specific that you're looking for. And for all the specific races, I'll have those at the end. And this is a massive patch, so get your drink of choice ready, and let's dive right into it. Alright, so here's the highlights. Changes to settlements and garrisons to reduce the frequency of settlement battles. Additional flavor of some of the special settlement garrisons, including Carrick 8 Peaks, Black Pyramid, Skaven Blight, and more, by allowing them to use additional units. Character experience rebalance, reducing the importance of victory types and focusing on enemy unit destruction. Tweaks to the victory objectives of several legendary lords, including those of the Lizardmen, High Elves, and Empire. The game mode split option has been added to ranked multiplayer, letting you join separate queues and giving you greater control of your online experience. Adjustments to AI aggression, strategy, and overall game difficulty. Plus, monsters are invading the old world in the form of Regiments of Renown 3, and a new Endgame crisis brings ruin death to all. Yes, yes. I did already skim through these patch notes, and these are all really big changes. But I'll wait until we get into that point specifically in the patch notes before I go into detail on them. Alright, so first the Regiments of Renown. So the 7 Warhammer 3 factions, kind of including the Demon Prince here, are getting monster Regiments of Renown. So the Green Guardian of Grand Cathay has the ability redirecting aura. Enemy units within range of the aura will have their projectiles redirected back at themselves. Stat adjustment, increased missile resistance. Khorne's Bloody Fist for Khorne gains the ability Gore Shell. The Bloodthirster gains damage resistance when near large enemy targets. The Frozen Heart of Winter for Kislev, ability Heart of Winter Spell, bound version, creates an area that damages nearby enemies over time. Uncle Furuncle, that's a fun one. Ability Defiling Deluge. Uncle Furuncle heals himself while damaging enemies around him. Spell update, Miasma of Pestilence to Spirit Leech. Snowhorn of Morn for the Ogre Kingdoms. Ability Glacial Defense. Stonehorn gains increased armor and missile resistance at the expense of some speed. Ability Frostbite reduces the speed of enemies. This unit strikes in melee. The Marquis of Masochism for Slaanesh. Ability Feasting on Fear, which is a passive, regenerates health based on number of enemies who have had their morale break around the Keeper of Secrets. Spell update, Lash of Slaanesh, change to Phantasmagoria, and Acquiescence, change to Enfeebling Foe. Golden Griffin of Tzeentch for Tzeentch. Ability Increased Armor, permanent glittering robe. Spell update, Blue Fire of Tzeentch, change to Searing Doom. Pink Fire of Tzeentch, change to Gehenna's Golden Hounds. Which is kind of interesting. So this is now a lore of metal instead of a lore of Tzeentch. And then we got the Skaven Endgame crisis, Vermintide. Skaven cities are erupting, burrowed deep beneath the surface. The Skaven are expanding their underground empire to the farthest corners of the world with warp bombs ready to turn your settlements to ash, plus hordes of vermin spewing out from the dirt in the name of the Underfather. Willing factions must race to wipe the major Skaven factions off the map and put a stop to the Vermintide. But tread carefully, for every Skaven clan that's yet to be slain makes the erupting Undercities even deadlier. Yes, yes. And I do really like all the endgame crises. And it's going to be really crazy when, like a year or two from now, when we have like 20 different endgame crises. Going to create some really crazy gameplay. All right, stability and performance. Fixed an end-of-turn crash that would occur when a default rebel faction was set to another faction omitted from the campaign. So that's what was going on. Okay, this was big, because this was ruining several of my Immortal Empires campaigns. So if this has happened to you, it's where the end timer will always stop. It varies on what turn, but I think this happened on like turn 56 for me on a Bretonnia campaign. But every time it would get to faction 8, I think is what it was, and then it would freeze and crash, and I could try to revert back to previous saves, change up what I was doing. It just always crashed at that moment every time, and you could not continue that campaign. So that was definitely a game-breaking bug. So yeah, hopefully that is fixed. And fixed a rare crash when characters would trigger post-battle voiceover lines in a campaign. All right. Now to the gameplay. Rules, systems, and general updates. How they play events on campaign starts have been rewritten to cover core gameplay elements for every faction. All right. Removed a number of starting wars between factions who are not their intended starting opponents. This is unlikely to affect player experience directly, but will improve the performance of AI factions such as the Demon Prince. All right. Updated reinforcement locations within various faction settlements to prevent unintended enemy behavior. Effects that increased healing caps are no longer 100% stronger than intended. Yes, this was it Gorst? I think this was a big problem with Gorst, to where he could create immortal zombies that just forever healed. Settlement and deployed towers have had their damage reduced to be consistent with Warhammer 1 and 2 towers. That's interesting. Did they need to be? Were towers too powerful? I didn't think towers were too powerful, but okay. When colonizing ruins, you now take a temporary vigor penalty instead of a massive manpower loss. That is pretty awesome. Yeah, that's pretty great. So now instead of colonizing a ruin and then that army is basically out for several turns. I mean, I guess we'll see what this vigor penalty is. I'm gonna guess it's just like 15%, which isn't too bad. Yeah, that's a big change. I'm not so much interested in myself, because I would always play around that in colonizing ruins. But for the AI, that'll be really interesting for the AI colonizing ruins. Pick some quest items that provided magical attacks despite the legendary lord having magical attacks by default. Okay, that's nice, because that's something I always had to pay attention to. Fixed an issue where Sword of Cain didn't correctly transfer post-battle if its owner died, resulting it equipping to another lord hero. Fixed an issue where vassalized factions would lose objective completion upon reloading a save file. Fixed an issue where auto-resolve battle results would change after loading a quick save. Remove the cap for income provided by tribute from vassals. I didn't realize there was a cap. Guess that's good. Endgame Ultimate Victory objectives now support vassalizing factions as an alternative option to confederating or destroying them. In-game scenarios now trigger the research of all technologies for the respective factions automatically. Okay, am I understanding this correctly? Once an endgame scenario triggers, all your research is unlocked? Okay, actually, that might be, so say for the new Skaven endgame crisis, all the technology for the Skaven, the AI faction, gets unlocked. Okay, that would make more sense. The free upkeep effect on endgame scenario armies is now visible to the player. Mounted Marauder variants will no longer fire autonomously in melee, though it is still possible to manually order the unit to fire. We are investigating other cases of units that gain large amounts of performance from similar behaviors. Aw, well that's kind of a bummer. I kind of like that, and it did kind of make sense to where, I mean, if you're on horseback with a bow and you're charging into people, why not still be able to shoot? I guess maybe it's supposed to simulate, hey, I'm taking out a sword and we're engaged in melee now. Anyways, Allied Recruitment will now provide access to all units offered by the requisite DLC if owned. As before, there is a subset of units available to non-DLC owners. Oh, that's interesting. So, yeah, I think I was experiencing a bug to where I could not recruit Rattling guns from an allied faction. This might be what this is about. Because I was wondering why I couldn't do that. That was like the only unit that I couldn't recruit. And I was pretty sure it was a bug. Maybe it was a bug. Maybe this fixes it. Hopefully. Added and increased trade-focused benefits to the ports of Marienburg, Lotharn, Ehrengrad, and Bordello. That's good. I like ports having a lot of benefits. Campaign reductions to the wind's magic cost should now properly affect overcast spells. Dragonfang mounts are now properly available to the intended Warhammer 3 factions. And we've implemented additional fixes for instances of flying units being able to capture points, this time affecting, all right, Mage Fire, Dragon Mounted, Phoenix Mounted, Techless, and Glade Captain, Eagle Mounted Wood Elves. And I can't recall what the Blood Pack incidents are, but would regularly all fire between turns 10 and 20 given the duration of most campaigns. This meant that around 20% of campaign battles were actually being fought with a completely different pace and balance than intended. Adjusted the timing of Blood Pact incidents so they're more regularly spaced out, reduced the duration of Blood Pact incidents to 5 turns. Yeah, I can't think of what that was. And then, of course, the Spiffing Brit makes his way into here For exploits, fixed on exploit where certain legendary alerts from Warhammer 2 could be duplicated in a single campaign. And the Spiffing Brit went over that with the Wood Elves. So yeah, they did fix that one. All right, for races and balance, I am going to go through the general changes, but I'm going to leave the specific race changes till the end. So general, each allied outpost in Tomb Kings or Beastmen settlements will now grant +1 unit capacity for all of that faction's units. Added missing UI tooltips to Giant Spiders, Feral Bears, and Feral Ice Bear units. In Update 2.0, we significantly buffed many units across all the undead races combined with the switch to percentage-based healing in Warhammer 3. This significantly reduced the impact that crumbling has on units whose leadership has broken. As a result, we're slightly increasing the damage of crumbling to help with clearing out undead armies that are falling apart. It did feel like, okay, so yeah, Crumbling, Tomb Kings, Vampire Coast, and Vampire Counts damage 10 to 21 is now up to 14 to 28. It did feel like when a unit was crumbling, it was taking a long time for them to get taken out. So I look at that as a positive. Channeling and Winds of Magic replenishment. Several races lacking the channeling stance now have their own unique method for replenishing Winds of Magic. So with the Beastmen, it gets spicy after hours. This faction now benefits from greatly increased Winds of Magic replenishment during full moon events, 50% during a full moon, plus 100% during lunar eclipse, and plus 150% during solar eclipse. In addition, Beastmen now gain plus 10 Winds of Magic per turn when in a raiding stance. Greenskin, based on their faction-wide WOG level, gain 3369 Winds of Magic per turn for all forces. Lizardmen, like the rest of the Lizardmen race, Nakai now has access to the channeling stance. He didn't. That's interesting. You know, I don't think I've ever played a Nakai campaign. Maybe I should. I don't think anyone needed to in Warhammer 2. I don't think anyone really wanted to, but maybe I could give Nakai a chance. Norsca gain plus 10 Winds of Magic per turn when in a raiding stance. Devotion to the Eagle now grants a Winds of Magic power capacity. Vampire Coast, the flagship expansion stance, only available at sea, now offers the following Winds of Magic options. Plus 20 Winds of Magic per turn, own army. Plus 10 Winds of Magic per turn, forces within sphere of influence. That's nice. Wood Elves. Wood Elf major settlement buildings now grant 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 Winds of Magic reserve per turn to local armies. They are magical forests, after all. Makes sense. Abduct captives post-battle options now offer plus 5 Winds of Magic reserve. And then for all these races, we'll come back to it. Out to the campaign, I would say this is some of the biggest stuff. So character experience. In Warhammer 2, character experience from battles was based entirely on the result type of that battle. A heroic victory would grant a certain flat amount and a crushing defeat much less. In Warhammer 3, this was changed so that the value of the enemy army played a major role. While this resolved some issues, such as reducing the amount of XP you could get from trivial battles, it didn't address them all. Notably, battle result types continued to play a major part, even though the logic producing them was not clear. Whether you got a heroic, close, or Pyrrhic victory could often feel arbitrary and random. Yes, it definitely did. This also greatly disadvantaged the AI's own progress, which tends to lose a larger portion of battles than the player. Additionally, the system resulted in substantially faster progression compared to Warhammer 2, especially if fighting against high-value armies. While we are happy with the rate of experience gain being faster than Warhammer 2, it also greatly increased the range of XP you could earn from a single battle. This meant that the rate of progression could be radically different depending on factions, such as starting position and playstyle. As such, we are making the following changes. Victory type is no longer used as part of the experience calculation. Instead, experience will be granted based on a combination of the enemy army's value and the proportion of enemy army that was destroyed, regardless of whether the battle was a win or a loss. In other words, destroying 80% of the enemy army will grant the same amount of experience, regardless of whether the battle was a heroic victory or a crushing defeat. After all, failure is often the best teacher. If the enemy army is fully destroyed as a result of the battle, for example, if it was caught in force march stance and could not retreat, it will grant the full amount of experience even if some units were able to escape during the battle. That is good to know. So a lot of this gets back to, do you finish off units after the battle's already been won? Yes, do it. However, you don't need to if the army is going to be fully wiped out anyways. So I would take that as in settlement battles. And then, like it said here, Force March, if they're in Force March, you don't need to worry about finishing them off. Good information to have. The formula you use to calculate experience has been adjusted to narrow the range of possible experience rewards. Experience gain will be around the same while fighting low and moderate value armies, but less when fighting very high value ones. Heroes will now gain around 50% more experience from participating in battles, bringing their progression rate closer to that of lords. That's nice. In addition to this, we're adding a new mentor skill to every lord and hero. This unlocks at level 30 and can be upgraded further at levels 40 and 50 and allows them to share a portion of the experience earned among characters of the same type across the faction. Plus, the lord version of the skill will grant increased experience gain to heroes in their army. And that might also fix... So I wonder if that's automatically unlocked. But there is problems with heroes of not having enough... having too many skill points for their amount of skills. As in, like, you'll have every single hero skill at around level 40, and then you just have 10 skills just sitting around doing nothing. That definitely bothered me a lot. All right, settlement and garrison changes. We continue to look for a sweet spot for unwalled settlement battle type. The following changes will adjust the frequency of the battle type and reduce it. How much will depend on the players and also the AI's playstyle. Additionally, we have lost some of the more detailed and nuanced pieces of content when we transition from ME to IE, but are in the process of re-adding some of this flavor. All right, all major settlements will retain their walled settlement battles enabled by the wall effect on the primary chain. All minor settlements will now trigger a land battle by default, added an effect that has a chance to turn the default land battle into an unwalled settlement battle, similar to the wall effect on major settlements leading to walled settlement battles. The effect has been added to most standard garrison chains starting at tier 2 and tier 3. I definitely approve of this change. The below exceptions should remain as they were before. Major settlements in Norsca and Ogre homelands still do not provide walled sieges, but will change to unwalled settlement battles. Wood Elf glades still do not provide walled sieges, but will change to their unwalled settlement battle version. Wood Elf outposts still do not provide walled sieges, but will change into their world route battle version. Beastmen herdstones still do not provide walled sieges, but will change into their beast path battle version. There are some additional changes too. Added a unit of Reiksguard to Castle Reich and adjusted Reich's Fort to 1 Reiksguard instead of 2. Ogres had access to both garrison chains and minor and majors. Now only one is correctly available. Missing siege defense tower projectile upgrades have been added for Kislev ogres and Nurgle. Heroes have been added to settlement garrisons from hero unlocking buildings. Khorne, Tomb Kings, Bretonnia, Cathay, Demon Prince, Nurgle, Ogre, Slaanesh, Ryko, which is good. That just makes sense. Like if you're building a hero building, you should get a hero in the garrison. In addition, we have added missing spells to garrison heroes. Finally, additional units at all tiers for special settlement locations with 3 to 4 units of higher unit quality have been added to the following: Khemri, Lemia, Black Pyramid, Toruvres, Carrick 8 Peaks, Hell Pit, Gainvale, Hexawaddle, Itzel, Kuraz Karak, Lothern, Nagaron, Skaven Blight, Altdorf, Dragonhoof, Khorne, Wei-Jin. Aggression and game difficulty. We have received quite a lot of feedback related to AI and game difficulty. While we've been fixing significant issues, we also felt it was a good opportunity to increase the aggressiveness of the AI. However, this is a double-edged sword. For players are already struggling with this game, this has the potential to worsen the experience. We will need a lot more feedback on this topic to decide if these changes are correctly balanced. Was anyone having difficulty with the game? I mean, maybe? Like maybe if Warhammer 3 was your first experience with like any Total War, this definitely felt way easier than Warhammer 1 and 2. And I think it was directly related to the AI aggression. They just wouldn't move. They would just sit on a settlement. This happened so many times where the AI for me would just sit in their settlement and they would just refuse to come out. Even if they could take one of my settlements in one turn, they could just move out and take the settlement. They were just refusing to do it. And 2, I do normally play on very hard campaign difficulty. So you would think, oh, okay, hey AI, you could just take my settlement. Why aren't you doing it? But okay, Anyways, back to the updates. Increased general AI army aggressiveness to a balance between the current Warhammer 3 and former Warhammer 2 values. Added additional difficulty scaling for aggressiveness on very hard and legendary. Right on. Tweaks for AI behaviors around settlements. They're now more likely to attack. That was what I was just talking about. Increased faction potential bonus for higher difficulties. Added increased XP gain for AI units. Added increased XP gain for AI characters. I don't know if I necessarily like that because the AI units and characters just seem to get massive XP no matter what. It's kind of like every turn they're getting a level no matter what happens. Like I'll fight armies where they couldn't have won like a single battle in the entire campaign and somehow they're freaking level 30. How is that a thing? Anyways, reduced AI generated diplomatic goals 2 to 1. Adjusted AI skill selection for Khorne, Tzeentch, Castellan, Kugath, Boris, and Greasus. Adjusted how AI deals with character yin and yang effects. Increased priority for AI to build garrison and walled buildings. AI behavior for commandments that consume slaves adjusted. Settlement AI will now be aware of stealth units trying to capture victory points. Is like how aware though? Like it makes sense that they would not be aware, but is this like, oh, the AI can now see your stealth units because it's AI? Or is it going to be, hey, a stealth unit is, or something is now capturing my point, I better get over there? I hope it'd be the latter, and that would make sense. Fixed a bug stopping the AI from correctly constructing buildings correctly constructing buildings, yes. The AI will now reliably research technologies that cost money. Okay. Removed a bug preventing the AI using their toggleable abilities. The AI will no longer be able to directly declare war on vassals of human factions. Fixed multiple cases wherein respawned AI factions will become inactive. They are now more likely to declare war. Adjust a bug where the AI would avoid entering a settlement when attacking. The AI will no longer be reluctant to upgrade last level of a chain if chain was already present in the faction. Attacking AI armies in siege battles will no longer commit to approaching a ladder if there are other easier means of nearby entry. This is also a problem for my own armies though as well, because I would try and get like one of my units through a gate and they kept stepping to the side and trying to climb a ladder. So hopefully that addresses the human player armies as well. Hopefully like that's a pathing thing that they fixed and not just AI. Improve the AI's use of agents, which should lead to more agents being embedded in armies and fewer cases of large number of agents from several factions congregating around each other. That was really ridiculous. You'd see like a dozen different agents from multiple different factions all hovered around like one city. That was pretty ridiculous. So that's good. I like that. The AI now uses the new dynamic region hint system as part of its evaluation on when to declare war. This should decrease war declarations by distant factions that are unlikely to come and attack you. Okay, that's nice. Various factions have had their base faction potential changed as part of start position moves and other changes. Legacy nerfs to the Barrow Legion, when controlled by the AI from Warhammer 1, have been removed as they were no longer necessary. Thanks to the modding community for bringing this to our attention. That's interesting. I don't know what exactly that's about. Minor Tzeentch factions have been prevented from using changing of the ways in the IE map as well as the ROC map. This will likely require a new campaign to take effect. That's awesome. Thank you. It is fun to use the changing of the ways if you're Tzeentch, but yeah, the minor factions like constantly stealing your settlements. Oh man, that's so frustrating. That is really frustrating. All right, AI construction changes. General, higher incentive to construct landmarks and special buildings. Updated AI construction for Empire, Dwarfs, Greenskins, Vampires, Norsca, and Bretonnia. Demon Prince, incentivized to outsource barracks to minor settlements. Kislev, increased chance to pick unique buildings in Kislev. Avoid construction of basic barracks and cavalry buildings in cities, Kislev, Arengrad, and Prague. Higher chance for Boris to build the Bear building. Lizardmen, incentivized to outsource Asaurus barracks to major settlement, get access to the Temple Guard. In the prologue, faced an issue where Yuri's axe would float after a combat animation. Cool. Immortal Empire has added a new Skaven-themed endgame scenario. Yes, a Black Pyramid of Nagash now starts flying when the Pyramid of Nagash endgame scenario triggers. This battle also loads with the Black Pyramid in the map. That's kind of cool. Diplomacy, low reliability rating no longer increases the chance of successfully inviting another faction to join your wars. Kind of funny. Confederation has been rebalanced. Thank you, making it easier to achieve. Specifically, the base aversion has been reduced slightly, the weighting for the player's military strength has been increased slightly, and you will gain a bonus to Confederation if you own regions within the current active region hint group for the AI faction. Plus, the penalty to Confederation for the target having recently conquered a settlement now only applies for 7 turns, down from 10. Yeah, that's all great. Confederation, God, it is almost impossible to confederate, which makes no sense. It'll be like a faction with 3 settlements, and it is impossible. You can own half the freaking map. Someone with 3 settlements refusing to confederate, where your diplomacy is 200 with them. It really makes no sense. Where it's like, I think it's 150 plus, to where you do get bonuses, like exponential bonuses, but at the same time, it feels like those are not being applied. Anyways, Heltharian and Ikari now have diplomatic contact at the start of the game, added a front-end customization option to enable diplomacy, peace, and confederation for endgame scenario factions. Encountering a vassal faction will automatically count as meeting its master. Makes sense. Fixed an issue where resurrected factions could not be engaged with via diplomacy. This requires a fresh campaign, however. Okay. I haven't run into that. The gift to vassal option is no longer available if the vassal is dead and unable to be resurrected. Makes sense. Reduce public order penalty from Confederation, -8 to -4. And then for battles, general updates, added missing army abilities to multiple quest battles. Fixed missing tooltip for battle leader, invalid usage flags on abilities, updated Newland to correctly load barracks in the style of the settlement they are contracted in. Fix missing or non-functional army abilities on minor factions during battle. This means that changing an army's banner color, for example, during a multiplayer battle or just a custom battle, will no longer prevent some army abilities from working correctly. All right, what about quest battles being bugged to where you cannot complete them? Because this has also happened to me. There's some quest battles, specifically like Bretonnia. Bretonnia, I think, they have a ton of bugs. Maybe they'll show it specifically in the Bretonnia fixes. But they had a lot of bugs, and one of them was kind of game breaking to where you could not win the some of the quest battles. To where I have to get the mod to auto resolve quest battles to complete that quest. But anyways, all right, multiplayer. I very rarely go into multiplayer, but I'll just cover this quickly. Added a selector and ranked matchmaking to queue for land battles, domination battles, or both. General updates fixed an issue that caused multiplayer games to softlock when the faction taking their turn would disconnect from the game. Declining a threaten will no longer cause a crash if an allied player is asked to join the ensuing war. Fixed a multiplayer campaign desync issue when playing as Greenskin and starting or finishing a WOG. Players can now play any faction in the Realm of Chaos sandbox mode, regardless of the faction's restrictions in regular Realm of Chaos games. Teammates in multiplayer campaigns will now start with a trade agreement if it's possible for the factions to be trading. Added chunk point battle catchments to rivers in the Chaos Wastes. All right, so actually that was multiplayer campaign stuff as well, which I do play. All right, for the game. Graphics. We've implemented fixes and made adjustments to several graphical aspects of the game. The shader for hex by size when viewed through the porthole. The aspect ratio of all Warhammer 3 characters in the Ethel, Tamara, and Elector counts panel. Several instances where unmounted and shielded lords heroes were utilizing their shields against ranged fire. An issue where a certain demon's body would not disintegrate upon death looking at you, Azazel. Okay. I have not seen that. An issue where the Arnheim battle map was displaying a floating magical pillar, several instances of Chaos Knights not skinning properly, an issue where Knights of the Blazing Sun would have missing textures on some LODs, an issue where lakes would appear as gray spots on the tactical view, an issue where lava would display both Tzeentch corruption and the usual textures simultaneously. Some previously missed art assets and now use Warhammer 3 style. All the 2D lords and heroes artwork from Warhammer 1 and 2 has been updated to align with the Warhammer 3 style. Audio. Battle replays now triggering sounds nor updating audio settings while paused. Buildable tower and barricade construction sounds continue to loop after the construction is canceled. Various sounds becoming excessively ducked when the camera is positioned near lords or heroes in battle. A number of demon faction leaders' voices not matching their diplomatic actions. A bug where music would sporadically stop during battles. Campaign pending battle music not triggering on the post-battle screen after fighting a manual battle in single player, as well as a multiplayer bug where it could loop after exiting the post-battle screen. I have run into that. An issue where Malice would steal Zarkan's reverb during campaign voice lines. That's funny. The excessive reverb in the voice lines of Tehenuan's sacrifices to Sotek. Skaven characters' excessive chat. Kolek's campaign channeling stance now vocalizes slightly less often. Loyalty-related dialogue during opening character details, even if the character does not use loyalty. A minor sync issue between some campaign music elements. We've enhanced the audio of several Lord Select videos: Draika, Gorsht, Grumbadal, Orion, Oxyotl, Sisters of Twilight, Skarsnik, Volkmar, Wurzag. And for the settlement sound, the sounds of legacy faction settlements have been updated, polished, and brought up to a similar standard as the settlements added to Warhammer 3. All settlements now have bespoke crowd wall and loops with unique one-shot sounds based on the temperament of the settlement. This means that if the settlement is in revolt or under siege, the player will get a better sense of the current faction flavor more than ever before. As part of this, you will also be able to hear which faction is in control of a settlement building. For example, the Empire has a real bustling crowd active with farm animals, metal, steam machinery, and old world industry. Gone are the continual bell sounds, which have been replaced with a richer soundscape that feels like you are in Empire territory without having to look. This has been an improvement the sound design have wished for, as it felt weird to hear high-quality, detailed sounds from Cathay and Tzeentch settlements in contrast to factions from Warhammer 1 and 2. It's just a nice little touch. So the following factions had their settlement sounds recently updated: Empire, Bretonnia, Dark Elves, High Elves, Wood Elves, Norsca, Beastmen, Greenskins, Skaven, Vampire Counts of Vampire Coast, Tomb Kings, Dwarves, Lizardmen, Warriors of Chaos. The UI added new full-screen parallax background illustrations for Beastmen, Bretonnia, Greenskins, Tomb Kings, Vampire Counts. Other fiction fixes: Demons of Chaos background illustrations were re-exported to fix some visual issues with parallax, fixed incorrect display of Shadow Cane phasability, added an inky background effect behind the piece of 8 panel so the text will be more readable in various color profiles, updated all stance icons for all factions to match the style of Warhammer 3. The Visions of the Old Ones tooltip was updated to be more accurate, and translations were added to reflect this. Fix an issue where settlement victory objectives weren't updated correctly after loading in. Added various player name displays in the UI for battle replays. Added the player list to the top left when watching free-for-all and domination replays. Made it easier to see Beastmen Blood Grounds icons on city labels. Updated the subtitles reveal speed for some Beastmen quest battles. The settlement art for Jinpo, Arnheim, and Fortress of Vorag are now lore appropriate. Increase the size of the frame for supporter actions cost on Motherland's panel so numbers fit properly. Change behavior of the gifting unit text component so that it scales better with different army sizes. Fix multiple issues with pre-battle screens displaying partly black. Fix the character trait tooltip not showing the reason for the character gaining the trait. Added the ability information tooltip to buildings that give an ability when built. Settings added the functionality to use the text boxes to input specific endgame settings, i.e. turn triggers. Localization. Increased padding of the description text in multiplayer campaign lobbies so omlets are displayed properly. Multiple instances of missing translations have been fixed. All right, you can see that. Modding added the ability for modders to unlock technologies using a Lua script. Fun for modders. And now let's get into the specific factions. All right, starting with the Beastmen. In this update, we're raising the multiplayer cost of all Chaos Spawn units for all races, as they were an overly prevalent unit thanks to their excellent mass and tanking potential. In the Beastmen's case, they have a notably lower damage than the other variants, so we are compensating for that. Across the board, Giants have been not a popular unit in any race or game mode, despite the additional missile resistance. We are again giving them a blanket buff, increasing their armor and weapon strength to make them one of the hardest hitting units in the game. There'll still be a slow, huge target, so we believe that this should bring them into the meta without making them too oppressive. Minotaurs, we'll see about that. Minotaurs are another unit that has been performing poorly, especially when Chaos Spawn occupy a similar design space. For now, we're giving them a boost to their hit points, allowing more time to benefit from their Blood Greed passive. Paired with reductions to their multiplier cost, we hope to encourage their inclusion in competitive builds. General updates. Beastmen no longer unlock Dark Elf ports when erecting a herdstone. That's funny. They also no longer use their basic port in special port locations. Torok's Brass Bull. Torok now gains +1 momentum from the first battle he fights each turn. Momentum will no longer decay after concluding a rampage, only when Torok fights another battle. Momentum granted at the start of a new rampage. 1, 2, 3. Campaign. The Eye of the Gods event no longer targets an army that does not belong to the player's faction. Oak of Ages settlements will now correctly provide a unique herdstone building chain when occupied. Battles. Fall of Man quest battle. Coral Fronts will now spawn during the battle as intended. Fall of Man quest battle updated the intro camera height. So they are fixing these quest battle bugs. There's a lot of quest battle bugs. Units. Chaos Spawn for the Beastmen. Base weapon damage 90 to 100. Multiplier cost 90 to 1,000 gold. Giant Beastmen armor 30 to 50. Base weapon damage 150 to 120. AP weapon damage 450 to 500. Multiplier cost of 1,500 down to 1,400. Minotaurs with shields. The hit points went from 8224 to 8704. Multiplier cost 1250 to 1200. Minotaurs hit points 8224 to 8704. Same changes. Minotaurs with great weapons. Same changes. Butchers of Kilkengard. Minotaurs with shields. Same changes. The skills. Crowfather Malagar now offers missile resistance instead of missile damage to his army as per his Warhammer 2 effect. Technology. Beastmen technologies are now correctly labeled as challenges in the search field. Bretonnia. In Update 2.0, we changed the speeds of several horse-based cavalry rosters. However, Bretonnia hadn't received this treatment until now. We'll monitor how the faster cavalry units get on, as well as your feedback as you get the time to experiment with them in combat. This is already good. Fixed Battle Pilgrim unit cards not showing on buildings for Bretonnia. I did notice that. A rare softlock that could occur during AI Bretonnia factions turns have been fixed. I also experienced that. Fix the unavailability of the Bretonnia brothel building. The Fey Enchantress's quest for Morgiana's Mirror will no longer autocomplete when constructing any building rather than the specified Tower of the Enchantress. Fix Rapun's starting mission for Pierre Diardin's banner not completing. Battles updated character abilities in the Chalice of Potions, Guardian of Lioness, and Sword of Lioness quest battles. Enabled the missing army in Rapunzel's Sword of Lioness quest battle, meaning players can now complete it. Yes, that's good. That was one that was very annoying. All right, units. So speed buffs. Bretonnians, the run speed on Barded Warhouse mounts, 75 to 78. Rapunz, run speed, 70 to 75. Knights Errands, 75 to 78. Knights of the Realm, 75 to 78. Questing Knights, 75 to 78. Grail Knights, 75 to 78. Grail Guardians, 70 to 75. Abilities, Dolores Blade, Green Knight, remove the buff to melee base damage as the Green Knight does not benefit from it. Duration, 27 to 33 seconds. So those are pretty small speed buffs. I'm wondering how much that's actually going to affect things. I mean, they couldn't boost it to 80. Was that extra 2 points just too much? All right, Demons of Chaos. The Demon Prince can now use their basic port in special port locations. The Demon Prince's deity-specific post-battle captive options now offer an additional effect in addition to glory gain. Khorne, unit experience, Nurgle, replenishment, Slaanesh, favor, Tzeentch, winds of magic. Units, Chaos Furies, multiplayer cost went from 60 to 550. Skills, Freakish Mutations now properly applies its effects to the Chaos War Shrine unit. Dark Elves. The Dark Elf slave system felt too passive, so we made things a bit more dynamic by removing the slave cap on mountain settlements. Players can now utilize global effects at the cost of their public order to focus on capacity, or instead have a settlement utilize around 100 slaves to keep their infrastructure bonus active. Other settlements, in the meantime, can keep their capacity lower and just use slaves when maximum capacity is reached. Once you get a chance to play with it, let us know what you think, whether the system is now too punishing or if it is still too passive. General updates cleaned up a redundant help page information regarding Dark Elf slave mechanics. Slaves, Dark Elf, a racial mechanic. Starting number of slaves reduced 200 to 100. Slave right cost 400 to 800 gold. Dictat cost 400 to 600 in the open market, 200 to 400 elsewhere. Dictat cooldown, open market 5 to 0 turns. Several adjustments have been made to the slave drain in relation to public order. If public order is insecure, wavering, or weak, the slave drain rate from buildings now increments to 10%, 25%, 100% accordingly. The slave capacity bracket have also been adjusted as follows. Tier 1, 0 to 500 to 0 to 800. Tier 2. All right, there's a lot of numbers here. Big increases to the capacities. Construction costs also changed and added income percentage from all buildings 1, 2, 5, 10, 20. Yeah, these are some pretty big slave mechanic updates. Commandments. The increased production commandment now has the following effects: growth plus 25 to plus 50, slave income plus 10% to plus 20%. Sacrifices for Cain's slave effect have been changed. Slave decline negative 30 to negative 50. Roads now additionally reduce the slave cost of dictats by 10%. Buildings, industry chain. Slave drain is now only active when above 100 total slaves. Slave drain rate negative 10, negative 20, and negative 40 to negative 20, negative 40, negative 80. Black Ark slave building added slaves per turn 10, 20, 40. Farm provide half their growth based on slave availability. Added small slave capacity increase 20, 40, 80. Added 5%, 10%, 20% slave income increase in region. Minor settlement remove the slave capacity. Ports slave drain is now only active when above 100 slaves. Slave drain rate negative 8, 20, 50 to negative 10, 40, 100. Public order provide half their public order based on slave availability. Slave building added public order penalty negative 2, negative 4. Slave capacity decreased 500 to 1,000 to 300 to 600. And a lot of changes. I mean, I guess overall, this is probably a buff, which is kind of crazy. I mean, I don't know. There's some back and forth. There's a lot of back and forth here. Actually, this does kind of make me want to play a Dark Elf campaign. Just kind of see how it feels. Campaign records a Whip of Agony quest battle. Now correctly offers a recruitable Black Ark as a reward. Malice's Right gift to the Witch King now gives experience to the spawned hero. The number of settlements in Malekith's faction is now displayed when performing the rite. The Dark Elf Long Victory reward now grants plus 15% income from slaves. Fixed Locator being wrongly affected by loyalty. Battles updated character abilities in the Warp Sword of Cain quest battle. Abilities fixed an issue where murderous prowess wouldn't always display in battle. Skills fixed recourse Kyrian Crows still not displaying upkeep for Harpies. Traits Marathi will no longer gain the corrupted by Slaanesh character trait. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Technology, fix Marathi's technologies, Festival of Ruin, and Endless Debauchery, spreading chaos, undivided corruption instead of Slaanesh corruption. Items, fix Marathi's quest item, Heart Render, and the Dark Sword, spreading chaos, undivided corruption instead of Slaanesh corruption. Dwarves, general updates, rebalance the starting severity of some starting grudges for the Dwarf Legendary Lords, fixed issues where the grudge severity was increasing far more quickly than intended, moved Beligor's Vanguard deployment benefit from his Lord effect to his faction effect. Dwarves no longer retain their Mohawk after losing their heads, which, let's be honest, was quite the skill. That's funny. Campaign dwarves no longer declare war on other AI dwarfs during the Grudge Too Far endgame scenario. Fix an issue where Gautric could not equip Dwarf Ruins. Thorgrim, Grudgebearer's starting engineer, now has his unique starting trait, as does Cazador. Abilities add an army-wide plus a 20% missile block chance to Beligor's Lord trait. Items fix the icon correctly, claiming that unique items in the Forge could be crafted multiple times. Grand Cathay, general updates, fixed unintended cases where Cathayan yin and yang buildings could be converted into each other. Both Miaoying and Xiaoming no longer have access to active spells or abilities when their dragon transformation, with the exception of the following: Dragon's Breath, Talons of the Night, Eye of the Storm. I thought that was already a thing, but maybe there was just some bugs and weird situations where you could. Campaign the Caravan Encounter, a gift from Ind, will now only offer units that will fit within the 20 unit cap of the caravan. Example, if the army has 20 units already, no units will be offered. Abilities fix the Dragon Emperor's Wrath of Cathay Compass ability, not causing enemy armies to take attrition in Immortal Empires. All right, Greenskins. Greenskins will also benefit from the giant buffs. We will, of course, be monitoring both how it plays out and your feedback as we make additional changes. When an AI Greenskin faction's WOG completes, the event message will now display the faction in question and will only display if the player has met the faction through diplomacy. Campaign, the Pig Barter settlement chain is now appropriately that of a major settlement. Grimgor Ironhide, Grimgor and Ironhide's quest item, Bloodforged Armor, will now correctly be awarded to the AI. Grimgor's short victory underwent some tweaks to bring it in line with other short victories. Grimgor's short victory description is now more accurate, added the Tower of Torment and the Challenge Stone regions to Grimgor's short victory region objectives, reduced Grimgor's short victory requirements 625. Grom the Paunch fixed Grom's cooking ingredients not unlocking when completing his quest battle or when getting certain character types to rank 15. Fix Grom the Paunch's Lord defeat trait not applying the causes terror attribute. Skarsnik, fix Skarsnik's faction effect not applying plus 100% experience for heroes. Skarsnik's Greenskin recruitment building chain now starts at level 2. Wurzag, fix Wurzag's being able to recruit the Idol of Gork, a Regiment of Renown at rank 2 rather than rank 30. Units, Giant, and yes, the Giant changes. Goblin Wolf Chariots, projectiles 2-1. The Teeth Robbers, the Regiment of Renown Wolf Chariot unit now correctly has Strider as opposed to a deprecated and non-functional attribute. High Elves. Although they remain capable in campaign, High Elves have been called out for their overall underperformance in multiplayer, despite implementing numerous buffs to them in 2.0. So we are rolling out a massive pair of multiplayer cost reductions across the board for ranged and elite units. This will allow High Elves to bring more troops to multiplayer battle, significantly boosting their overall power level and map presence. We are also adding Martial Mastery to Sword Masters of Hoeth and Lore Masters as some of the best combatants in the High Elf roster. We believe this to be not only an appropriate buff for performance reasons, but also thematic ones. That makes a lot of sense. And that's actually interesting, as I'm not a multiplayer player. They're struggling in multiplayer, huh? I mean, they might not be the strongest faction anymore, the High Elves. I think the Champions of Chaos factions are just stupid strong. So they might be stronger within the campaign, but the High Elves are very, very strong in campaign. So it's interesting to see that they're having problems in multiplayer. Anyways, general updates. Fix some text in the Athel Tamara panel where the phrase upgrades available was cut off with ellipses for several languages. Campaign, Legendary Lord quests granting unique items will now grant the ancillary if the mission is canceled. The High Elf nobles gain influence agent actions now grant influence over time as in Warhammer 2. Fixed an issue where the Cult of Pleasure was not getting the correct elven building, removing garrisons. Alithanar now receive a Shadow Mage at the start of a campaign, plus his starting position has been changed. Starting in Karankar made it harder to convincingly brood, so they now encamped in the monoliths. Altharion the Grim. Altharion's long-term goals no longer mimic other High Elf goals. Instead, he will need to deal with his rival, Grom the Paunch, ensure Tor Rivres is in safe hands, and deal with other nearby Greenskins and key Slaven threats. Makes sense. Increased the strength of Altharion's second starting army and changed its lord to an Archmage with a custom trait. That's cool. Added unique capacity for Wistwalker units to the Tor Rivres main settlement building and removed the ability to build the Mistwalker building in the settlement. Altharion's Mistwalker dilemma will no longer trigger for legendary lords who have been confederated. Imeric's victory objectives have seen minor tweaks to better suit his starting position. Rather than migrating back to Ulthuan, he now needs to encounter all the dragons as well as destroy nearby major Skaven, Chaos, Greenskin factions. Makes sense. Fixed an issue where Imeric's dragon encounter markers wouldn't produce a generic dragon fight army to fight against. Clicking Imeric's dragon encounter button will no longer move the camera to the bottom left of the map. Teclis' starting position has been changed, having emerged from the jungles and reclaimed the Fortress of Dawn for the High Elves. His victory objectives have seen minor tweaks to better suit his new starting position. He now needs to gain control of the majority of elven colonies rather than taking full control of Ulthuan. So a lot of just general lore, really. A lot of this just makes sense and then helps make each of these campaigns feel more unique. Battles updated the character model in the Talisman of Hoeth quest battle, assigned the correct deployment positions for the Lemuro quest battle, rotated reinforcement armies to closer match their entry locations from Warhammer 2 in the Shakalot Dragon battle, updated the map of the Armor of Kalador quest battle to fix the intro camera. Units. Okay, these look like all multiplayer changes. So they're all multiplayer cost reductions. I'll kind of slowly go down this. Oh yeah, and that's also, the Swordsmaster of Hoeth and the Lore Master of Hoeth, they're getting Martial Mastery. So it's removing Martial Prowess and giving a Martial Mastery. That's kind of the only buff. Other than that, multiplayer costs down across the board. Traits, health, influence traits have been rebalanced, bringing the weaker ones up to par and reducing a few outliers, while some have had their effects adjusted to make use of new possibilities introduced in Warhammer 3. Fixed Alithanar's lore trait, not reducing the upkeep for Shadow Warriors. Technology, restoring the missing units from the High Elf technology tree from the Warden of the Paunch and the Paunch DLC. Items change the mission requirements of Teclis Scroll of Hoeth quest item to defeat Tzeentch armies instead of Dark Elf armies. All right, Khorne. Dev note, while Khorne performs very well in campaign, yes they do, their units are often too expensive in the multiplayer environment, even when considering their high power levels that are designed to make up for the race's lack of magic. As such, we are reducing the multiplayer costs of the most elite units of Khorne to allow them to shine in multiplayer. At the same time, the spawn of Khorne underperform when compared to their counterparts, so we are very slightly increasing their armor. Minotaurs of Khorne will be receiving a significant multiplier cost reduction in addition to matching the hit point buffs of the Beastmen variants. This should make them a more attractive pick in all game modes. The Chaos Shrines of Khorne have a similar problem, where their Giver of Furious Glory ability is much weaker than the counterparts, and so we are increasing the maximum boosts these can offer. That said, we are assigning a multiplier cap of 1 to all Chaos Shrines, as we would like it to be a support unit as opposed to core pieces of the army. Chaos Knights have been underperforming in multiplayer across the board for all races, so we are reducing their multiplayer cost globally. All right, so there's going to be a lot of multiplayer changes. General updates. Gorby's Chariot of Khorne now uses the correct icon in the Demonic Glory panel. Fix Khorne Blood Hosts counting towards supply lines calculations. Fix the Skullcrusher Leader Boon of Chaos, only applying to the character instead of all Skullcrushers in the army. Campaign Scarbrand Short Victory Reward in Immortal Empires Winds of Magic has been replaced with a Chainsword. Nice. All right, units. A lot of multiplayer costs. I will scroll through this slowly with also some hit points. So the Minotaurs, yes, getting a hit point increase. But yes, just general multiplayer costs being reduced. Actually, Spawn of Khorne being increased. Abilities, Giver of Furious Glory, Chaos Shrine of Khorne, maximum base weapon damage effect +5 to +15%. Maximum AP weapon damage effect +5 to +15%. Horn of Khorne now plays the correct audio. Mantle of Emulation, Blood Crushers of Khorne now provides weakness against fire instead of reducing fire resistance. Items, Khorne factions can no longer earn the Chromic Tome Ancillary. All right, on to Kislev. General updates replaced mammoths with marauder hunters in both of Katharine's starting enemy armies. Added sleds and Little Grom to Eringrad Frostholm Special Building. Reduced port cost of Eringrad from 2,000, 4,000, 6,000, 8,000, 10,000 to, wow, that's a big decrease, 500, 1,000, 2,000, 4,000, 6,000. Fixed campaign settlement visuals for the Southern Oblast region to properly display as Kislev. Technology, Catharine now starts with ice sculpting technology already unlocked, granting faster access to the Ice Court training mechanic. Change Kislev technology that require ownership of settlements to also allow for allies' vassals' ownerships of the settlements. That makes sense. That is good. So you don't have to actually own those settlements. Items, the tooltip to acquire Catharine's unique weapon, Frostfang, has been updated to better reflect how to obtain it. To the Lizardmen. Lizardmen have been performing very well since the changes we introduced in 2.0. We will keep an eye on them as we consider further tweaks for roster diversity. Keep the feedback coming. For now, we are only adding a cooldown to Lord Croak's deliverance of its spells, as these are hugely powerful and should conform with the norms of our spell systems regardless. Fix a bug where the alignment of monuments commandment was providing global construction time reduction instead of provincial. Nakai is no longer too zoomed in on the character details panel. A broken visual link in Nakai's technology tree has been fixed. Fixed an issue where Quaddle units would not be recruitable if you own the Silence and the Fury DLC, but not the Prophet and the Warlock DLC. Campaign. Tic-Tac-Toe will now receive a Skink Chief with a unique trait at the start of a campaign. Krokgar. Krokgar's long victory objectives no longer target Lustria and instead focus on eliminating the forces of destruction and chaos nearby, as well as ensuring nearby jungles are in safe hands. His short victory objectives have been slightly tweaked to better suit his starting position. Fixed an issue where raising or sacking a Skaven settlement would not count towards Korok's Mace of Ulamok quest. Nakai's long victory objectives now mainly focus on dealing with the Servants of Darkness in the east, with the exception being Clan Pestilence in Lustria. If Clan Pestilence is still alive, only Nakai reaches his short victory. He'll receive a dilemma allowing him to spawn a wandering army to aid the lizards in Lustria. Added the total Old Ones favor value to Nakai's Temple of Old Ones panel. Removed the duplicate experience effect on Nakai's Sentinel Hall building. Oxyotl. Fix Oxyotl's visions of the Old Ones spawning extremely strong enemy armies in the early game. Fix Oxyotl's teleportation cooldown. He is now limited to teleport once per turn. Oxyotl's long victory no longer targets Lystria. Instead, it requires the completion of 25 medium-hard visions of the Old Ones missions, previously Oxyotl's pre-2.2 short victory condition. Oxyotl's short victory objective, the completion of medium-hard visions of the Old Ones missions, has been reduced 25 to 6. Wow. His campaign must have been kind of crazy. Spells, Deliverance of Itza, Lord Croak. These spells now have cooldowns of 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 25 seconds. Norsca. This time around, Norsca only received some minor changes. Ice Wolves in particular have been performing significantly worse than Flesh Hounds while being in a similar cost bracket. As such, we are bumping up their combat performance and slightly reducing their multiplier cost. Additionally, we are also slightly increasing the leadership of Norskin and Chaos Troll units. That's nice. Matching those of Greenskin variants and allowing them to remain in combat a little longer. We are also reducing the multiplier cost tax on the heavier Troll variants. General updates. Remove secondary building requirements for all units. Moved unlocks for chariot units to Smith Chain. Smith Chain effects. Recruitment cost reduction 5, 10, 15%. Local recruitment capacity 122. Global recruitment capacity 001. You know, this is... I'm kind of back and forth on whether I like this or not. Because I do like it to where it kind of forces certain provinces to have certain units. Like Trolls versus Skinwolves. So it's pretty hard to have both of those in one province. So having the two separate building chains kind of forces that to where you have to kind of choose. Do I want Skinwolves in this province, or do I want Trolls in this province? So, I mean, I know they've taken it out of pretty much every other faction, but I don't know. I'm kind of on whether that's good or not. Offerings chain effects. Recruit rank 1 and 2. Unit XP gain 50 and 100. Casualty replenishment rate 5 and 10%. Norskin income change from infrastructure 100, 200, 300 to 50, 100, 150. That's a big reduction. From settlement buildings 40, 80, 120, 160, 200 to 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. Yeah, man, halves. Wow. I was kind of noticing, because I did play a Norskin campaign. They have a lot of money. Like, they're not having money issues. Yeah, I guess so. I'm not. I guess I'm not too upset by that. Campaign, we can see the players are enjoying Norsca now, although there have been a lot of comments about the ease of their campaign. We want to retain their naval-based expansion pattern and their strong focus on naval operations, so we have therefore reduced their land-based economy. This should also put a bit more emphasis on devoting raises to the gods without stopping players from creating a bit of a static economy where needed. Makes sense. Fix the map positions of the Norsca Monster Hunt quest battles. Okay, well, what was fixed? Skaggy settlements in southern Nagaron have been removed and returned to the neighboring Dark Elf factions. Units, Beast of Tashnar, Norscan Moorhounds. Okay, that's multiplier cost reduction. Norscan Giant, we know those changes. Norscan Ice Wolves, melee attack 26 to 30, base weapon damage 29 to 32, armor piercing weapon damage 13 to 16, multiplier cost reduced. Norscan Ice Trolls, leadership 40 to 45. God, are they really that low? And multiplier cost reduction. Noise controls, leadership 40 to 45. And War Mammoth fixed an incorrect mass setup. Don't know what that is. Skills, Thrugs, King of Trolls skill now applies effects as intended. God, I didn't even realize they were that low. That is so low. Okay, so Trolls just running in and then just immediately running out. Nurgle. In this multiplayer update for Nurgle, we are making their Chaos Shrines more expensive on characters while encouraging the inclusion of elite monsters and Chaos Knights in the meta. General updates. Pestilence effects that are designed to increase enemy siege attrition no longer decrease it. Units. Bilious Thundergruff, Chaos Giant. Ah, yes. Okay, so there's the giant change. Cultists of Nurgle. Multiplier cost increase. Demon Prince of Nurgle, multiplier cost decrease. Chaos Knights. Okay, so a bunch of multiplier cost reductions and cap reductions. Abilities, Children of Nurgle passive, no longer utilized in the game. What was that ability? I can't think of it. Ogre Kingdoms. In Update 2.0, we went a bit too far by reducing the capture weight of all Ogre infantry to 3 in domination mode, akin to other monstrous infantry. As this race lacks access to regular, non-expendable troops, we will be making an exception to bring their control capabilities up to speed with other races. Campaign, having found the open air and sea breeze of Myrmidons a little too overwhelming, Scrag the Slaughterer's starting position is being updated to be more familiar and cramped tunnels of Karak Engazar. Battles improve the attacking AI's ability to knock down settlement walls. Units, yes, the giant buff. Monstrous infantry units, domination capture weight 3 to 5. Monstrous missile infantry units, domination capture weight 3 to 5. Technology Sky Titan Plateau now gives a +1 camp limit for every level 5 camp constructed. That's nice. I felt like the camp limit definitely hampered me in the late game. So it's nice that, okay, for every level 5 camp, you can make another camp. That makes sense. That's good. Skaven. The mass of Skaven Doomwilves needed a bump, especially since similar chariots are significantly more weighty. This should allow them to push past infantry mobs more easily while ensuring that they can still be surrounded and caught. General updates. Warlock Engineer heroes once again experience a 10-turn cooldown when establishing undercities. Added missing settlement icons for resource and strategic locations for Crookback Mountain. Improved Skaven AI construction to reduce the amount of Skaven slaves armies, especially for Clan Eshin. Fixed an issue where the Plague Priest from the Pestilence scheme was not spreading plagues to settlements. Faction and Lord effects. We're continuing to iterate on the faction and Lord effects of older lords. The goal is to ensure every character has their own thematic playstyle that incorporates any new mechanics and systems added since their original introduction. Queek Headtaker. Clan Moors are known for a most unskaven-like loyalty, so we're representing this by giving Queek access to cheaper, more frequent uses of Menace Below, as well as cheaper Clan Rats and Storm Vermin. The following changes have been made to faction effects. -2 loyalty for Grey Seers. Queek no longer steals a percentage of XP from other lords. Food cost reduced by 33% for Menace Below uses. Players can now purchase up to +5 additional uses of Below Menace before battle. Wow. Reduced upkeep for Clan Rats and Storm Burnin by 25% faction-wide. We've also added a new reward for capturing Karak Apex and tweaked Queek's Lord effects to be more versatile. Queek's Lord effect changes. The 50% upkeep reduction for Clan Rats and Storm Vermin for the Lord's army has been removed. Added -20% leadership for enemy lords and heroes in the region. Weapon strength and melee attack buffs when fighting dwarves and greenskin now apply map-wide. Melee attack buffs when fighting dwarves and greenskins change +10 to +10%. Karak Apex changes. Controlling Karak Apex as Queek now grants Frenzy for all Clan Rats and Storm Vermin. Wow, so big. Yeah, those are big buffs to Clan Rats and Storm Vermin for Queek. And that's pretty crazy. The faction wide. So I mean, Queek is getting a nerf for his upkeep reduction, but the faction wide upkeep reduction, I would say, is way better. Tzeentch Craventail. Tzeentch's original bonuses for breaking treaties were not really worth the major reliability cost. We've reworked them to instead provide major bonuses on any war declaration, rewarding the player for setting up cunning schemes and eliminating their opponents in rapid, unexpected attacks. To represent Clan Rictus Renown Wealth, Clan Rats and Storm Vermin who manage to survive a few battles and gain some experience will win the gift of improved armor and weaponry. Tzeentch's own army will now benefit from the devastating flanker attribute, making his armies particularly vicious in ambushes. The betrayal bonus has been reworked. Tzeentch's factions now gain the following bonuses to all armies for 3 turns whenever he declares war. +25% bonus success chance, +50% army reinforcement time, Vanguard deployment, +1 use for Menace Below. Other faction effect changes include +3 recruit rank for Storm Vermin has been removed. +1 armor and base weapon damage attack per unit experience rank for Clan Rats and Storm Vermin has been added. Okay, I mean, that is a small buff, but that is notable. And Lord effects added attribute devastating flanker, all units, removed attribute, Vanguard deployment, all units. Campaign Thrott's Flesh Laboratory upgrades will now correctly apply their effects, such as random mutations for Skaven slave units. However, for this to take effect, players must start a new campaign The Warlike Engineers model is no longer offset on the campaign map after a quick save is loaded. Battles. Skaven settlements having their wall towers swapped for tier 3 and tier 4 projectiles has been fixed. Units. Tretch Craven-tail removed ability by our blood passive. I don't remember what that was. Doomwheel mass 1250 to 2000. It's a big buff on mass. All right, Slaanesh. Slaanesh has shown near absolute dominance in multiplayer as of 2.0 update. There are many factors to this, and while we have raised the cost of Devoted Marauders in 2.1, many significant outliers remain. One such overperforming unit is the Chaos Shrine of Slaanesh, where reducing the damage of its Giver of Torturous Glory, seeing as the shrine does not need to be actively in melee to trigger this. Reducing the multiplier cap will have a significant impact too. Another big overperformer has been Hellstriders of Slaanesh, as they have gained significant stats thanks to the Mark of Slaanesh, but remained at the same price. This will now increase to match the Hellscourge variant. On the topic of Hellscourges, we have an across-the-board problem where the associated infantry units have no armor-piercing damage. Expensive units must perform well, so we are giving them a 1/3 armor-piercing ratio and matching their cost to the core variants. Hellscourge units will continue to be better at holding the line, but perform slightly worse in terms of damage dealing than their regular infantry counterparts. General updates. Slaanesh Disciple armies no longer count towards supply line calculations. Nakari can now choose to destroy or subjugate targets to satisfy their short victory objectives. Units, looks like multiplier cost reductions. Yeah, across the board. The Chaos Warriors of Slaanesh, the Hellscourges, base weapon damage 32 to 20, big loss there. Armor piercing damage 0 to 10, slight increase. Campaign cost, slight decrease. Upkeep cost, slight decrease. Multiplier cost, decrease. Removed, weak against armor. Chaos War Shrine, the cap is reduced. Chosen of Slaanesh, base weapon damage 44 to 26. Armor piercing weapon damage 0 to 13. Campaign cost reduced by 200. Upkeep cost reduced by 50. Multiplier cost reduced by 200. And removed, weak against armor. Cultists of Slaanesh, multiplier cost increase, multiplier cost decrease there. Devoted Marauders of Slaanesh. So yeah, this is all the Hellscourges getting kind of the same weapon damage, armor piercing damage, campaign cost changes. Keeper of Secrets, Blissful Rapture. What was that? That has been removed though, which was a passive. The Mirror Guard, multiplier increase, Hellstriders, multiplier cost and campaign cost increase, and upkeep cost increase. Hellscourges, base weapon damage 27 to 33, armor piercing 13 down to 7, campaign cost 700 down to 650. Soul Grinder of Slaanesh, the charge bonus 50 to 40, multiplier cost 1900 to 1750. Spawn of Slaanesh, also multiplier increase. Abilities. Disciple armies are summoned via Slaanesh's Unholy Manifestation, will now scale in size based on the local Slaanesh corruption. The max damage of Giver of Torturous Glory, Chaos Shrine of Slaanesh, has been reduced from 16 to 32 to 12 to 24. The Empire. Now, I know there's some big Empire changes here. Some padding has been added between the Empire technology groups so they appear nice and neat. Empire factions can no longer bypass the 5-turn cooldown on Confederation through their faction mechanics. Elector count tweaks. Elector counts can now be invited to join wars, greatly reduce the reinforcement delay, and remove the cost for moving the reinforced point in Empire Elector reinforcement battles. Added extra cavalry units to Empire Elector reinforcement battles to help with larger map sizes. Dev note, previously, the player would receive an Imperial Authority penalty when Elector count capitals were raised, but not when they were occupied. This produced strange outcomes. For example, it was considered fine if Festus occupied Hawkland, but not if he raised it. Now the penalty will apply if any non-Empire faction controls the capital. Since Sylvania is occupied on turn 1, we've increased the buffer for when penalties from lost capitals kick in from 1 to 2. Fixed an inconsistency with elector count capitals being raised versus occupied. Yes. Region tagging. Elector counts now use the region tagging system present in Champions of Chaos. Players now gift a broader set of regions to the relevant electors, including ones not owned by an elector at campaign start that they might have a claim to. Authority is now gained by returning an elector's capital rather than reviving them from death. This removes situations where it was better to allow an elector to die rather than save them. Note that players will need to start a new campaign for these changes to be implemented. Campaign fixed an issue where Call of France's short victory objective would sometimes abort. Call of France will now receive a guaranteed wizard of a random type at the start of a second turn, added a missing garrison building chain to Altdorf, reduce the unlock of Castle Reich in Altdorf to tier 3. Marcus Wolfheart's long victory objective now targets Lustria instead of the Empire. Makes sense. Armies spawned from Marcus Wolfheart's hostility mechanic will now only spawn from certain specific locations in Lustria. If Wolfheart or his ally occupy these regions, the armies will no longer spawn. The Altdorf Conclave of Wizards has been reduced to tier 3 to match the generic chain it replaces. It now also grants an additional +1 battle wizard capacity over the generic version. The player-controlled empire can now do full diplomacy with Marienburg, including diplomatic confederation, confederating empire minors through the empire politics changes that now properly obeys the 5-turn cooldown on confederation. The event giving you the option to confederate will be delayed until these 5 turns have expired. Volkmar has increased baseline aversion with undead factions, Tomb Kings, Vampire Counts, and Vampire Coast. Battles. Prestige gained from battles is now visible in the post-battle screen. Updated the reinforcement location of the player's allies during the Amber Bow quest battle. Multiplayer buildings in the Amber Bow quest battle are no longer incorrectly marked as destructible. Units, Boris Todbringer fixed the order of Boris Todbringer's campaign skills. Karl Franz, the Emperor, was due a touch-up. His new lord effects allow him to operate more effectively when supporting the electors, and we buffed Galmaraz to better align with its legendary status in the lore. I'm pretty sure Chaos Dwarfs is going to be the next DLC. Probably not going to get it until 2023, but I'm pretty sure after that, after Chaos Dwarfs, we're going to get a lot of probably Empire and Bretonnia updates. They might add some new Empire factions, possibly a new Bretonnian faction, but I think they're going to get big upgrades. You know what? Probably this time next year. That's going to be my guess. October next year. Anyways, faction effects now grant plus 25% prestige from all battles. The best of the Empire skill that used to grant a plus 5 leadership bonus for various units has been replaced by a plus 20% experience gain for all units Lord's army. Lord effect has also undergone some tweaks. It now grants the Guardian ability to Rexguard and Greatswords in Karl's army. Removed plus 8 leadership, added plus 10 charge bonus. The effect can now replenish in neutral territory. Items, Gal Miraz now grants sundered attacks and plus 75 flat armor piercing instead of plus 10% weapon strength. Also grants an additional plus 15% weapon strength when fighting against chaos. The Tomb Kings removed Vampiric Corruption from level 3 of the protection chain for Tomb Kings, added a bespoke overlay for the defeat panel for Tomb Kings, fixed a discrepancy between Porthole and Unicard for Direwolf units. Campaign, there are some slight tweaks to Khalid's short victory to make them more vampire-centric. Cetra will now receive a Tomb Prince with a unique trait at the start of a campaign. Tomb Kings can now increase hero capacity repeatedly via the Mortuary Cult. That's great. That's very good. I approve. Battles updated the subtitles display speed and Archon's The Staff of Nagash quest battle to be consistent with other quest battles. Items fixed unique items in the Mortuary Cult, incorrectly showing the icon representing that they could be crafted multiple times. Tzeentch. My Lord and Savior Tzeentch. We are, for the most part, happy with Tzeentch's performance, and these changes are largely just part of wider passes such as the Spawn and Chaos Knights. Chaos Sorcerers of Lords were able to instantly summon Spawn without a wind-up or initial cooldown, and we are bringing this in line with Cultist Summons. Chaos War Shrines of Tzeentch haven't been as performant as their counterparts and have forced your spellcasters to stay in the direct vicinity. This isn't very practical, so we're giving the Giver of Arcane Glory a map-wide buff with a better spell mastery effect. General updates added missing sound effects for Tzeentch's Sorcerer Lord on disc when doing casting animations. Half of the library and Corruption Chain's income percentage increase is now Winds of Magic dependent. Campaign, Kairos's starting position has been changed. Really? With his mysterious goal to the Fortress of Dawn now complete, Kairos has retreated to the Fate Weaver's crevasse just across the ocean. A lot of multiplayer cost reductions here. The Loader Change removed Fires of Tzeentch, passive, yes. Soul Grinders gain some ammunition, that's nice. The Severed Claw, the Aspiring Champions gained a bunch of hit points. Did they really need that? The Aspiring Champions are already pretty dang good. Abilities, Sword of Change, Chaos Sorcerer, Lord of Tzeentch. The initial cooldown, 0 to 60 seconds, recharges when Winds of Magic is over 15. Wind-up time, 0 to 5 seconds, and the multiplier cost increased. Giver of Arcane Glory, Chaos War Shrine of Tzeentch. Effect radius from 35 meters to infinite. Wow. And the spell mastery, 10% to 20%. Vampire Coast. This is a small one. General updates. Vampire Coast artillery crews now play context-sensitive VO. Really? They needed different voiceovers? Fixed Vampire Coast armies building Vampire Count siege towers. Added a bespoke overlay for the defeat panel for the Vampire Coast. Fixed an issue where zombie resurrection sound effect could be spammed if multiple entities were brought back to life at once. Abilities, fixed incorrect display of exploding unit phase ability on the bloated corpses. Short and sweet. Vampire counts, also short and sweet. Fixed an issue where chill geists were not healing from effects as expected. Removed some unnecessary penalties from Kemlar's AI. Fix an issue where the Balefire aura from the Balefire corpse card would not apply. Battles updated the hard collusion in Vlad's Blood Drinker quest battle. Units, Banshee, being an ethereal unit, we want to make the damage armor piercing versus normal damage output ratios consistent with other ethereal units. The base weapon damage went from 70 to 0. Wow, armor piercing weapon damage 240 to 290. I guess that, yeah, that's a buff. That's a buff. I mean, you're losing 20 overall damage, but adding 50 armor piercing, I mean, I would say that's good. Abilities, Manfred von Karstein's Lord effect, granting him 15 additional magic reserves, will now no longer revert upon loading a save file. All right, the Warriors of Chaos. The Warriors of Chaos have been performing rather well, yeah, I'd say so, since they can have access to marked units and a wide variety of characters. Largely speaking, we're happy with where they stand. I am also happy. I mean, they are really strong, but they also feel really awesome to play. With the majority of issues addressed with changes to the mono-god races. The Undivided Chaos War Shrine has not nearly as performant as its marked counterparts, and so we are doubling the physical resistance effect of Giver of Glory. The rework of Aspiring Champions have got them performing better than before, but we felt they could use another bump up to their hit points. This should bring them more in line with units of 16 entity count. General updates. Fixed an issue where Arcane Wisdom was not granting Warp Flame attacks to all units with the Mark of Tzeentch. Warriors of Chaos can now choose to destroy or subjugate targets to satisfy their short victory objectives. Fixed a variety of skills not applying correctly for Champion of Chaos army lines. Fixed an issue where Velkia's shield would T-pose after the death animation. Festus, Azazel, Velkia, and Village can now upgrade Demonic Infantry into their Exalted variants. That's cool. The Chaos Sorcerer Lord's cape no longer has a mind of its own after the unit's death. Nice. Campaign fixed an issue that was causing Warriors of Chaos factions to gain much higher post-battle loot values than intended. Sigval's buildings and commandments now spread Slaanesh corruption rather than Chaos Undivided corruption. Velkia's bloodletting ability at max level now allows casualty replenishment in foreign territory. Fixed Valkia's soul gain from post-battle sacrifices not being increased by her faction trait. Fixed a number of rifts that can be opened by Be'lakor and Immortal Empires that were positioned within impassable terrain. Units. Updated Festus's battle behavior to make him engage more in melee combat than before. Added missing AI usage configurations on Festus's healing elixirs and Harbinger of Pestilence. So, Inspiring Champions, the hit points 7808 to 9856. The Chaos Giant, yes, those increases. Then multiplayer cost decreases and increases. Chaos Trolls, that leadership increase. Then general, multiplayer cost, just readjustments, up and down. Abilities, with the inclusion of Be'lakor in the Warriors of Chaos race, as well as his frequent appearance in multiplayer events, we noted that the cost of his abilities haven't been set properly for the multiplayer setting. Today, we're taking steps to address that and bring him into balance with the rest of the multiplayer roster. Additionally, his Shadow Shroud abilities duration is significantly longer than that of similar abilities, while also offering a notably stronger plus 40% damage resistance. While we want to maintain the power level, we'll be reducing the uptime to bring it into line. Giver of Glory, Chaos War Shrine, physical resistance effect 10% to 20%, Shadow Shroud for Be'lakor, duration 33 to 20 seconds, multiplier cost increase, Lord of Torment, multiplier cost increase. Skills fixed an issue where Undivided Demon Prince's skills Chaos marked and Atmosphere of Ruin did the same thing. Sigvald, the innate trait, now grants the Fascination army ability to Sigvald's army if he is your faction leader. Egomaniacal now grants the Narcissism army ability to Sigvald's army if he is your faction leader. Born to Serve now grants the Sweet Sorrow army ability to Sigvald's army if he is your faction leader. Favored Son now grants +4 armor piercing melee damage to Marauders, Warriors and Chosen of Slaanesh. Marked by Slaanesh now grants +5 melee defense to Marauders, Warriors, and Chosen of Slaanesh. Technology, Sigvald now has access to the Vicious Lash technology. Fixed an issue where the technology requirement for Nurgle and Slaanesh Forsaken unit upgrades were the wrong way around. Items, Scarlet Armor for Valkia, reduce the intensity settings of the item. Max kills required 500 to 100. Minimum kills required 250 to 500. All right, the Wood Elves. General updates. Added missing Wood Elf units to allied recruitment. Removed description that states Special Wood Elf Outpost Reward Amber. Added missing garrison buildings to Wood Elf settlements. Added a starting development kindred point for Orion and Durthu. Faction and Lord Effect updates. We're continuing to iterate on the faction and Lord effects of older lords with the goal of making sure every character has their own thematic playstyle and to incorporate new mechanics and systems added since their original introduction. Orion. As the face of the more hostile side of the Wood Elves, we've tweaked Orion so that he focuses much more on campaign map mobility and aggression. Orion is now rewarded for fighting multiple factions at once and gains improved tools to allow him to zip around the map, opening up a more expansionist playstyle than is available to other Wood Elves. Also tweaked the Wild Hunt to have it trigger more frequently, though with a shorter duration, meaning that it can have a more reliable impact on Orion's campaign. Changes made to the faction's effect. New effect, plus 50% movement range in Woodroot stance. Wow. New effect, minus 8% upkeep for each active war in Orion's army. Minus 4% upkeep for each active war all other armies. Removed, plus 10% leadership in forest battles. Removed, minus 15% upkeep for cavalry units. Changes made to his Wild Hunt. The duration time went from 10 to 5. The cooldown from 20 to 10. Now starts with the Wild Hunt already active turn 1. Orion now gets plus 50% battle movement speed when Wild Hunt is active, so he can keep up with his Wild Riders. Zoom, zoom. All characters get plus 25% movement range after raising a settlement during the Wild Hunt. No cooldown on Deeproot's teleportation during the Wild Hunt. Changes made to his Lord effects, weapon strength and charge bonus buffs now affect all cavalry units, not just Wild Riders and Stag Knights. Removed, plus 5% faction-wide missile damage. Changes made to his never-ending hunt skill now grants plus 25% movement after raising a settlement for Orion himself. Other changes, Wild Rider recruit time set to 1 turn for all Wood Elf factions, as in Warhammer 2. Durthu. While Draika heavily focused on the Tree Spirit side of the Wood Elf roster, Durthu was left without a clear niche. Back before he got really cranky, Durthu was the architect of the original alliance between the Wood Elves and the Forest Spirits. As such, we're giving him a host of tools that open up new synergies between the two halves of the rosters. His Ancient Treemen now provide map-wide missile damage buffs when casting, and both Spellslingers and Ancient Treemen now become more powerful when working together. On top of that, his Treemen can now also tear down walls, opening up new avenues of attack for mobile elf units. This theme of synergy extends to Durthu's personal army, with his Treemen and Treekin now providing potent area effects. He's encouraged to mix units together to maximize their performance benefits. We also felt that Draika's combination of much stronger Treemen and much earlier access to them was probably a bit too much of a powerful combo, giving him a major power spike as soon as you built a tier 3 settlement. As such, we've split the difference between the two Tree Spirit focused characters. Both Draika and Durthu now get access to the Treemen at tier 4 rather than 3 and 5 respectively. I mean, I like that. I like those changes. It seems more like Cathay, and I really dig Cathay, like that, those synergy mechanics. Changes made to his faction effects. New attribute, Wallbreaker for all Treemen and Ancient Treemen. New attribute, Mastery of the Elemental Winds for all Ancient Treemen and Embedded Spellsinger heroes. New passive ability, Wrath of the Wood, map-wide missile damage buff when casting for Ancient Treemen. Removed, minus 50% recruitment cost for Branch Wraiths. Removed, plus 10% melee attack in forest battles. Changes made to his Lord effects. Removed, plus 5% weapon strength faction wide. Removed, plus 10 charge bonus for Tree Spirit units. Added, passive ability, Resplendence of Luminescence, area of effect melee buff to all Treekin units. Added, passive ability, Annoyance of Netlings, AoE melee debuff for Treeman units. Other changes, Durthu now starts with a Spellsinger instead of a Branch Wraith. Durthu now has access to Draika's alternate version of the Forest Spirits chain. Level 3 of the Draika Durthu Forest Spirits chain now requires a tier 4 settlement. Yes. Campaign, Wood Elves no longer declare war on other AI Wood Elves during Wild Hunt endgame scenario. Fix the Spirit of the Elder Dilemma, offering to confederate the Wood Elf faction Spirits of Shanlin, lacking rewards under each option. Fix cases where a Wood Elf army couldn't teleport in and out of the Haunted Forest or Jungles of Chan Forest regions. Battles. Major settlements controlled by the Wood Elves now have walls in defensive settlement battles. Units Hawk Riders, added attribute Vanguard deployment. Makes sense. Recruitment time 2 to 1. Wow. All right, so that's a really big buff to the Sisters of Twilight right there. Traits, remove the Wood Elf Talon of Corneus innate trait from the Spellsinger and Spellweaver trait pool, as the effects missile range strength would have no effect on them. Fix the Sisters of Twilight not gaining a unique trait when completing the quest battle for their dragon mount. Technology, fix Draika's technology wisdom of the Wildwood not giving physical resistance to the relevant units. And lastly, looking forward. As you can see, we've crammed a lot into Update 2.2. Yes, you did, but the work never stops. Update 2.3 rapidly approaching and is currently due to land in November. Wow, only a month away. Here's a look at some of the improvements you can look forward to when it arrives. This is going to be Warhammer 3's final patch of 2022 before we ramp back up again in the first quarter of 2023. Update 2.3 is expected to focus on bug fixes and balance changes that weren't quite ready for this release, as well as fixes to any issues that may bubble up over the next few weeks. As a result, it is expected to be lighter on content than 2.2. With this in mind, we want to ensure 2.3 addresses the most critical issues and the things that are most important to all our players. So your feedback, as always, continues to be vital. Please keep it coming on our official channels. Get involved in the discussion around Warhammer 3 and give us your thoughts on how the game can best progress throughout the rest of this year and far beyond. And there are already some known issues currently on our radar, so let's take a look. Auto-resolve for minor settlements post 2.2. There's currently a known issue wherein minor settlement battles will have inaccurate auto-resolve battle results. We're already aiming to have a fix ready for update 2.3, and we'll keep you updated if anything changes. That's a problem for me because I kind of like to auto-resolve. I wonder how big of an issue that is, or what the issue is specifically. I wish they would say more. AI preemptive dodging, artillery and range attacks. Yes. Another issue currently under investigation concerns the AI ability to dodge certain artillery and range attacks in battle, making it a less viable tool than intended. We're trying to achieve a delicate balance with this one. We don't want the AI to make 0 attempts to dodge incoming fire if it is feasible for them to do so, but I certainly agree that at the moment, the balance is way off. Yeah, it is. It is really hard to hit them. Like, the AI is really good at getting out of the way of stuff. There's no fixed ETA for a fix, but please keep the feedback and clips coming as we dig down into this issue and work towards a solution. Siege battles, deployable structures. Reducing the number of minor settlements in update 2.2 only addresses part of the problem we've identified. In particular, we'll be continuing to investigate how deployable structures are utilized in siege battles. Our goal is to work out how to best employ the structures without entirely negating what they offer to a siege battle. We'll have more on this in the future, but please know that we hear your concerns. We're looking into it, and we appreciate all the feedback we receive on this topic. So yeah, there was a lot. Obviously, going back up to the highlights here, I mean, changes to the settlements in the settlement battles. So like minor settlements, every tier 1 settlement that you fight is not going to be a settlement battle. It's going to be an open battle. That's going to break up a lot of the monotony. And to the experience changes, that's going to be kind of big. Fleshing out a lot of the victory objectives. That just makes it more thematical for again, the Lizardmen, High Elves, Empire. AI aggression, yeah, that's big. I mean, again, like I said at the beginning of the video, the AI not wanting to leave their settlements to go destroy your settlements when they're unguarded and they're just right there, like they could just leave and take them. It doesn't quite feel right. But if you actually made it this far, thank you for watching. And you know what? If you actually did make it this far, write a comment about your favorite chaos god. I mean, it's obviously Tzeentch, but really, I do appreciate you all watching. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, and/or subscribe. Take care, everybody. Cheers.